We are starting the 5th session of Module 3. This part is about rights and violations when freedom of speech becomes hate speech. We will explore both notions and learn what human and EU rights are violated when freedom of speech becomes hate speech. Freedom of speech and hate speech are two concepts often discussed in the context of human rights, law, and societal ethics. Although freedom of speech is a right for every citizen, people are using this liberty to promote hate speech and misogynistic discourses, both offline and online. Recently, the European Parliament released a report that underscores the deterioration of protection for minorities and vulnerable groups, with a strong focus on LGBTIQ people. The report expressly mentions Hungary's persistent breaches of EU values, referencing political influence on the prosecution service and misuse of EU funds, and urging the Council to unblock stalled Article 7 proceedings. MEPs condemn attacks on press freedom, the use of spyware against journalists and civil society, and the spread of disinformation undermining democratic processes, calling for full implementation of recent EU legislation, such as the Digital Services Act and the Media Freedom Act. Human rights can be violated through defamation and targeted harassment like cyberbullying, disinformation that leads to discrimination, spreading false news about a minority group, propaganda of war or racism, for example, Nazi propaganda, or ethnic cleansing justifications. The terrorist attack that happened in 2015 at Charlie Hebdo in Paris, France, is one of the best examples to illustrate the conflict between free speech and religious sensitivity. In this case, 12 journalists were killed in a terrorist attack that took place after cartoons of Prophet Muhammad were published in the satirical magazine. The French government considered the event to be an act of free speech from the journalists, although Muslims found it offensive, and this sparked global debate about the limits of satire and free speech in multicultural societies. Next, let's see if the following case study presents a situation of freedom of speech or hate speech. In 2023, a university student named Elena from a European capital city posted a controversial message on her personal blog. The post criticized the government's immigration policy and included statements suggesting that a specific ethnic group was a threat to national identity. The post went viral, drawing both support and backlash. Eventually, it was reported to the National Anti-Discrimination Authority for potentially inciting hatred. In support of her freedom of speech right, Elena argued that it was a political opinion on a public interest topic, not advocating violence. The arguments stating that her post was hate speech were built around the idea that the message generalized an ethnic group as dangerous, in a climate where tensions were already high. The Anti-Discrimination Authority ruled the blog post violated national anti-hate speech laws, stating freedom of speech does not protect expressions that incite hatred or discrimination. Elena was required to remove the content and complete a human rights training program. Anti-Roma hate speech by public figures in Romania is another case study worth mentioning. Dan Puric, a Romanian actor, public speaker, and cultural commentator, released in the public space a collection of comments and anti-Roma narratives. During 2016 to 2023, Puric repeatedly made ethno-nationalist and xenophobic remarks, especially targeting Roma communities and foreign influences in Romanian society. No formal conviction was made in this case. However, watchdog groups like CNCD, a National Council for Combating Discrimination, investigated the statements. The social impact was that his remarks contributed to growing anti-Roma sentiment. Civil society condemned the normalization of hate speech under the guise of cultural nationalism. In a case also known as the Anti-African Migrant Statements, during 2018 to 2021, Matteo Salvini, the leader of the Lega Nord party and former Italian Minister of the Interior, made repeated public statements referring to African migrants as invaders, criminals, or carriers of disease. He used this language during political campaigns and on social media, to rally nationalist support. Several legal complaints were filed, but most were dismissed under Italy's broad freedom of political speech laws. The Italian Court of Cassation later ruled that hate speech laws apply even in political discourse, prompting warnings rather than full convictions. Rhetoric led to increased racial attacks, including the Macerata shooting, 2018, where an Italian man shot 6 African migrants. The tragic event sparked protests across Italy calling for accountability and better hate speech enforcement. We know it's a lot of information, but we are sure you understood everything. Are you ready for a short comprehension check test? You are doing great so far.